We are back for the Wednesday Linc Live. 1 week off, kind of a post-draft. Josh vacation mixed in as well. We'll talk about that, him going to Hawaii. Josh, we welcome you in right now. We have some breaking news here, which we're going to get into in a second. That is regarding Jalen Carter. First off, welcome back from Hawaii. Ready to jump into a live show. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has been. I'm excited to jump into a live show, get this thing kicked off, not for necessarily the breaking news that we have. Like you mentioned, we'll get into it here in a second. But yeah, it was great. Hawaii was awesome. It was fantastic. I appreciate everyone who reached out. There was tons of people saying, hey, have a good time and enjoy the weather. And we definitely did. I'd say that, time flies when you're having fun. And everyone, including you, who said Hawaii would be awesome, were absolutely correct. So we had a great time.
There you go. One of the coolest places to go to. Obviously, glad you got some time off after what was a crazy draft week for everybody. I mean, we all did a ton of videos, a lot of live shows, and had a bunch of fun. We're letting people go ahead and pile in here because we need to jump into some of the breaking news regarding the Philadelphia Eagles. And this will be our first topic of discussion. This dropped 6:34 p.m. Eastern time, so less than 30 minutes ago. And here it is from Pro Football Talk. Jalen Carter faces lawsuit in death of former teammate Devin Willock. I think is how you say his last name. Here we go. Eagles rookie Jalen Carter faces a lawsuit stemming from a car crash that killed his former Georgia teammate Devin Willock. Shahan Jaharia, which is that the Shahan that you and I know?
Yep, he's from the Lariat.
We both know him. CBS Sports report. Dave Willock, Sr.'s Willock's father, seeks $40 million in case filed Tuesday against the school's athletic association, Carter, and others. The suit alleges wrongful death, negligent hiring, and negligence. They go into kind of the history of what happened with Jalen Carter and that car crash, but let's get into more again of the fine. Quote, in addition to the school and Carter, the lawsuit also names the estate of LaCroix. How do you say that name? Sacharin Auto Group. Sorry if I got that wrong. Which provided Carter with the 2021 Jeep Cherokee Trailhawk and an NIL deal, and Strip Club Toppers International Show Bar as defendants per Jaharia. The lawsuit seeks $30 million in the defendants in compensatory damages and an additional $10 million in punitive damages from Carter. It's a lot of money. It alleges Carter had a pattern of excessive speeding. The car dealership should have taken under consideration after multiple speeding tickets. He previously was fined $1,013 after being cited for going nearly 90 miles per hour in a 45 mile per hour zone. End quote. So welcome everyone in right now. We're getting into the breaking news here. We'll cover this a couple more times throughout the show, but Jalen Carter is facing a new lawsuit. This comes 30 minutes ago from the family, the father of his former teammate who died, obviously, in the car crash that he was involved in. Now, we've talked about that extensively in terms of him not actually being in the car, part of the situation. They went ahead and did all of their judicial review that Philadelphia was going to do before drafting him. They felt confident. I assume they could have pretty much assumed that this was going to happen, but this still is some big news for the Eagles' #1 overall pick and hopefully one of their future superstars.
It really is. Yeah. And like you mentioned, I mean, it's something, if you're doing your due diligence and you know anything about anything, that the Eagles, that they can't be too taken by surprise on this, but still it's like, okay, the timing, hey, he's just signed his contract. Of course, that's probably planned, and if you're waiting to do a lawsuit, you're probably waiting until that actually takes place. But anyone usually kind of jumps in at that moment. Oh, hey, he just got a bag. Like, he's making a lot of money. And, the video of right, wrong, or indifferent, however you view what he posted, with him and the Georgia dogs driving around in the car and stuff. And I saw some, inappropriate tweets and people that are saying, like, why is he back in a car? And he's going to get that for maybe the rest of his life, which is very sad because it's a terrible situation that involved, not just himself, but a couple other people as well. And he did seem apologetic about it, but it's like, okay, you know what? Everyone makes mistakes. To the level of what Jalen Carter made, though, like, that may be with him for his entire lifetime. So it's not surprising that a lawsuit came here because, I mean, heck, we see lawsuits on everything these days. Anybody who can make anything, they're going to go ahead and do a lawsuit. But naturally, okay, yeah, you know what? That's your son. And so someone's going to make a lawsuit. If they don't feel like someone has paid the penalty, so to speak, for what they felt like he was maybe guilty of, or that he could get something from that, I don't know. It just with this report going out, it's hard to say, okay, is there really a side to go on this thing? Or is it just, here's the news, here's the details, and what do you make of that? But it's not too surprising that you see a lawsuit here. It's just, okay, yep, here's the timing, and now, gear up. This is what we have to deal with. But I don't think that it catches the Eagles by too much surprise. I don't know. Do you think that they're caught off guard by this? Because you do all your due diligence, like we've talked about here, and you kind of know that was a little bit of the risk, right? I mean, when you take Jalen Carter, it's not like, oh, hey, we took him and all this is gone. Like, this is probably going to be with him for forever.
First off, I want to mention Josh was a little laggy there. I think he's able to get that fixed and starting to come back in. A little bit of technical difficulties, but I got the gist of what he was asking is do you think this surprises the Eagles? And if you're just joining us, Jalen Carter has been issued a lawsuit in the death of his former teammate by the teammate's father. It's for about $30 to $40 million. We'll read you more on that as we did to go ahead and open the show. I don't think this shocks the Philadelphia Eagles. I think this, again, most likely was suspected. But I do think this is kind of the concern that you had when you drafted Jalen Carter was not only the past, but hopefully the future. Now, hopefully he learns from the past and is able to go ahead and figure things out going forward in the future. And this does not happen again, as Josh is going to go ahead and reset his stream, make sure he's able to listen to this. But I do want to be very, very clear about this sort of situation. This lawsuit will not affect him from a football standpoint, okay? Now, we're talking about football. That's different when someone loses their lives. I'm not trying to, just focus on football and be like, oh, it doesn't matter because he's not going to go to prison or anything. No, this is, again, a serious situation. But from a strictly football standpoint, my understanding is a lawsuit would not be prison time. It would be a settlement. Most likely it would be a settlement for X amount of money, which Jalen Carter would go ahead and pay if the settlement in a court is proven to be, I don't know what the proper law term is, effective, accurate, whatever you want to call it. If that is the case, then he'll pay a fine or he'll pay the family in damages and everyone will move on with their lives. This will not result in him being suspended by the league. This will not result in him being, fined by the National Football League. It will not result in him going to prison. It's not anything that serious, but it still is an interesting take and an interesting situation for the Eagles' #1 overall draft pick. I mean, their first round guy that they very clearly wanted. And we talked about ad nauseum leading up to the draft. And everybody on this stream, including Josh, who's getting logged back in here on his setup. And Josh, you give me the thumbs up whenever you're ready. All of us wanted Jalen Carter. I mean, truly, everybody wanted Jalen Carter besides a very small amount of people that didn't really want to do it. But at the same time, I do think that overall, this is a big situation to keep an eye on, as it will be something that's going to continue going over the next couple of days and weeks. If you're just joining us here, we're reacting to the Jalen Carter lawsuit, which just dropped. The father of his former teammate who died in that car accident is filing a lawsuit for $40 million in a case that was, again, filed earlier today. It's also against the School Athletic Association and the business that essentially gave Jalen Carter the 2021 Jeep that was part of the NI deal overall. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that goes ahead and continues going forward. We welcome everybody into the Wednesday Linc Live. Josh Davis is with us. We are working on getting him back on. A little technical difficulty, a couple of issues in terms of internet connection, but I welcome everybody who is joining us. Tyler Wallace is in here. NZ Philly fan says, love the link, all love from New Zealand. And then you have a couple of people commenting on the actual situation. And I'm continuing to wait for Josh Davis to go ahead and jump in here. Josh says he's ready to go. Josh, you look much better. There we are.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
Appreciate that.
Technical difficulties happen.
So hopefully we're good for the rest of the time.
You look good. It sounds much better. We should be fine. I was finishing up on the whole Jalen Carter situation, just emphasizing to people that Philadelphia knew this was going to happen. This is probably not a shock at all. And this is not going to result in any sort of jail time or suspension or anything crazy like that. If the NFL was going to suspend Jalen Carter, it would have already happened. They would not wait until training camp to do something. They've known about the situation for a very, very long time. And if Philadelphia knew he was going to get suspended, they might not have taken him #9 overall. So this is an off-the-field issue that is still very serious because it involves the loss of life, which we will respect, obviously. But from an on-the-field standpoint, I don't see how this affects Jalen Carter at all.
I agree. Yep. Like you said, and we kind of talked about here in the open, but it's the NFL is a brand and they're very protective of their brand and their product. And Roger Goodell is not going to stand up there on the stage if he knew full and well that in a couple weeks he's going to, oh, hey, we're actually going to suspend Jalen Carter. He's not dapping up, giving him a hug and all that. If there's like, yeah, we're not so sure about this one. So they're going to be protective. They've made some mistakes in the past. You can look at some of the other instances where they weren't proactive. You can name a Ray Rice. You can name several other instances. So because they've had a lot of negative publicity, I think that if anything, they're going to do their due diligence, the NFL that is, to the extreme. So like you just said, yeah, it would have happened before. It's not going to all of a sudden go, oh, wait a minute, now we're going to suspend him because he's involved in a lawsuit. Lawsuits happen all the time, like we said. It's not too alarming there from the standpoint of, again, he's going to play, but you do wonder, like, does this mess with his psyche, right? Like, because I mean, he was absolutely emotional and understandably so, like whenever he got picked by Philly. Now, granted, you could make the case of like, Was he emotional because he's going to get to play with his former Georgia teammate?
Right.
Sure. But there was also an element to it of like relief, of utter relief. And you could see the look on his face. So, the question is like, is this just a burden or a cloud that hangs over him for, a year, for a couple of years, for his entire career? And how does he actually play through that? Is he the type of guy who can be like, you know what, that's off the field. It's not going to mess with my play style. It's not going to mess with anything. I don't know, because you can look back or take the case of, well, what about his pro day? Like, he didn't show up very well for the pro day. So again, I get it. And I can't imagine the weight that he's feeling, especially a kid his age, what he's had to go through. So I'm not saying like, I don't give him credit or understand where he's coming from just from his psyche, but can he handle this? Is this another thing that's going to knock him off and, maybe not be able to play as up to the level that we're expecting him to?
A couple of comments here. I think that's really well said. Josh H. said that lawsuit is going nowhere for years. Too many high-powered defendants with high-powered attorneys. There wouldn't be any kind of trial for years. It will be dismissed or settled. I think settled is probably very likely in this sort of situation. Cool Rain says, hope it doesn't affect him on the field. That's what we all think and all obviously want. You got to think, off the field first in terms of people's lives and lawsuits and legal stuff. And so we always emphasize that. But that is going to be my question going forward. It's something that we all kind of knew, but I think we did kind of put it behind us once he was drafted. This idea of, okay, he's going to be great. He's the best defense player in the draft. No issues. He's going to be a stud, Pro Bowler, Hall of Famer, whatever. There still are question marks around him that we will not know that the answer to until he gets actually on a football field in a midnight green jersey in real game action. We're truly not going to know. And the good thing for him is he doesn't have to play an actual NFL game until August to get into the preseason. And even then, he might not play hardly at all in that. So we have plenty of time for him to get things figured out. But that is why he did fall to 9. There's a reason why other teams that we thought were interested, Seattle, Detroit, the Bears trading back from 9. They could have stayed at 9 and let Philadelphia not take him. Teams were hesitant to take him. Philadelphia felt like they had the situation and the coaching staff and the players to get him on the right track. Now we simply sit back, wait, and hope that that's the case. So we'll see.
We will see. But again, I'm not, and like you just mentioned there's no remorse. There's no buyer's remorse here. Like, it's not like Howie is seeing this and being like, oh gosh, did we make the wrong decision? He's completely sold on him. He's backing him 100%, as is Nick Sirianni, as is basically everyone who's spoken about him. So yeah, it's something that's going to hang over him. But I agree with your point. I don't think that it's going to affect anything in terms of the Eagles organization. It really comes back to the player, Jalen Carter, and his character and his ability. Can he play past this and overlook it and just kind of continue to move on? So I don't know. Only time will tell. We don't know for sure, but it obviously to us was a little bit alarming because we're thinking, all right, let's kind of start gearing up for training camp. And, we got some time to go. And all of a sudden the bomb gets dropped here of the lawsuit.
Troy Smith says football will be his outlet. He'll be fine. I agree. I think it's going to be okay and fine for Jalen Carter, but definitely something we're going to keep an eye on, and we'll talk more about here later on this show. We spin over to happier news, as tomorrow we have the NFL schedule release, and we got a little preview of what Philadelphia is going to have today, as they officially will play the afternoon game on Fox against the New York Giants in Philadelphia on Christmas Day. I think we both love that. I mean, Monday afternoon football is great. If this was Christmas Wednesday or Christmas Thursday, we'd be, but it's Christmas Monday. So just like playing a Monday afternoon game, it's not a big loss in terms of rest and recovery and getting ready for the week after that for Philadelphia. I have no problem with that, and it's very exciting. The other leak that I talked about on my show today was week 13 against the 49ers, which was a post that I think was posted by a local TV station in San Francisco, and it was the Fox Sports graphic showing Purdy versus Hurts, week 13 prime game on Fox, aka, the 4:00 window. They have since deleted that. I hope that's not the case. I want San Francisco in prime time. I think we're talking about the two best teams of the NFC who hate each other after the NFC Championship game and all the smack that's been talked. Give me the 49ers in prime time. I'd take them week 1 on Sunday night. I'd take them week 6 on Sunday night. They should be a Sunday night or Monday night prime time game. I really hope that is not the case tomorrow, that it's week 13.
I do too, but and I saw it on your show. You mentioned it. It's just funny because when you all of a sudden have the leaked reports and it's like, is this going to happen? Is it not? Then they delete it. The NFL might have gotten onto him like, hey, wait a second. What are you doing here? We're not really actually letting this out until tomorrow. I don't know. It feels like we're going to get the confirmation of, yes, it was official that it's going to be week 13. But I agree. I mean, look, it's the NFC Championship rematch. And if you look at the Super Bowl odds, number 2 and number 3 are the Eagles and the 49ers. So everyone is assuming that both teams are going to be in a fantastic spot. And it's later in the season. Let's keep it week 13. Let's just move it to prime time. If you're going to keep it even in that spot, Why are you going to make it in the 4 o'clock slot? I agree completely. Let's play that prime time. Maybe they're not going to, and that would be, to me, a little bit of a shame, but
Yeah.
we're not really the ones that gets to make that decision. I am excited, though, and I saw you talking about it on your show as well, like you mentioned, but the Christmas Day game, I think it's great. Like I was in favor of, I know we didn't get it, but I guess we're not going to get it now because it's the Jets and the Dolphins, I think. But, even the Black Friday, I was like, hey, you know what?
Right.
You get some leftovers, Thanksgiving leftovers, a great game there. But same thing with Christmas. We kind of do our thing early in the day, exciting, all that other stuff. But then towards the later portion, it's like, all right, hey, let's put on some football. So I think it would be great. It'd be exciting. Maybe for Christmas, unfortunately, the Giants will get the giant killer. I've seen a lot of those memes going around, but I think it'll be fun. It'll be great.
I totally agree. People are asking in the comment section, we're going to get some Europe games. Philly does not have a Europe game this year. They will not go overseas. That was released officially today. But what I read is that Philadelphia will for sure have a European game in 2024. So nothing this year, but one in 2024, which, if we're being honest, if you're trying to win a Super Bowl, you don't really want to have to go fly all the way to Europe, talking about the 6-hour time change from the East Coast and all the craziness that comes with going to Germany, especially, or going to London. I'm glad that they aren't, especially in a year where they're going to be really focused on staying healthy and trying to go ahead and win a championship. Okay.
I agree.
Make sure you hit the thumbs up button really quickly here.
You were saying too, and you may have seen this on Twitter, but if you recall, the last time that the Eagles played a Christmas Day game and they played the Chiefs in week 2, we won the Super Bowl. So if you believe in those sort of things, like, it's a good omen. And I totally agree with the whole don't play in Europe statement, because like you mentioned, the travel, the mileage, just the body clock and all that other issues that come up. Although the Jags apparently don't care because they're going to play 2 games. Maybe it's better though, because they're back to back. Like, you get adjusted, but that's, their owner is what doesn't he own one of the Premier League teams? I know he's from over there. Yeah. So maybe it makes sense, but still, I'm like, no, thank you. Do not sign me up for that.
I totally agree with that overall. All right, let's go ahead and get to some comments here. We have a lot of people jumping in. First off, over 150 people tonight. Give the show a thumbs up. We appreciate you guys. Douglas Montgomery says Jalen Carter will have the locker room support he needs. Ohana Meets Family says, what do you guys think will be week 1? I figured it would be San Francisco. These reports are making me think otherwise. I saw Joe Castro say it would be Washington, which has been the case for Philadelphia a lot recently. To me, a little underwhelming, but you also don't have some sort of big juggernaut week 1. You get the Commanders, who are good, but Sam Howell should be kind of an easy win. So we'll see. Troy Smith says, good support system for Jalen Carter. Let's see. Andrea, welcome to the chat. She says, I agree, Thomas. We need to play the Whiners on a primetime slot. I agree. They've been wanting too much. They've been wanting way too much.
40 Whiners.
For us not to do that, right? Cool Rain says the 49ers trash. They cry about only having 10 players. We had their D couldn't do the job and stop the offense of the Eagles. Can't wait to show them it wasn't a fluke. That's what Josh and I said the entire time we were at the game together. It was like, guys, you could play defense and make this close, and then your quarterback just make 1 play to score instead of 30. But I don't know. What are you going to do? It makes absolutely no sense. I saw another comment I want to get up on the screen if I can find it, but the comments are coming in here pretty darn quick. We'll throw a B-walk really quickly. Love the Philly hats, Thomas. Can't wait to get mine. A quick update on the Philly hats. They are shipping. I shipped a couple today, and then a couple are going to go out, or the rest are going to go out tomorrow. So if you didn't know, we got the Philly hats right here. They look way better than these pictures. I'm working on getting fresher pictures on the website, but in person, they're incredible. They ship tomorrow. Everyone who got one of the Philly hats from thephillyhat.com will be getting theirs. If you haven't picked one up, we still have a couple of black ones left. Go ahead and grab them. Link will be down below in the description box, or just search the Philly hat. Okay, Josh is going to announce something pretty exciting, and it pairs with this from Donatello Dragon, the $2 donation. What's up, fellas? Good to see you all back. Go Birds. Donatello, we appreciate
What's up?
What Donatello doesn't realize, and Josh, I'll let you intro this. We're starting another giveaway, and this one's bigger than the one that we did. And we see Tyler Walls is in here. Andrea is in here. 2 of our jersey giveaway winners. We have something a lot bigger. Josh, take it away.
Yes, sir, we do. So little does Donatello Dragon know, but you just got entered into, like you mentioned, a much bigger giveaway. And so we had a fantastic time with the jersey giveaway, hanging out on draft night. We appreciate all the support. And so, Thomas and I, like we mentioned, we talk all the time. So we're like, hey, what do we do next? Like, what should the giveaway be? And so, as you can see, the graphic there that Thomas just pulled up, you can win Eagles tickets. So we are really excited about this, but this is going to be it's very similar to how the jersey. So if you've been following this, most of you probably have, you know how this works. But if you drop a super chat, every dollar is an entry, and you can win, or you can rack up entries between now and the start of preseason, where we will do a drawing, probably doing a live stream during one of the preseason games. We're not set officially on what the date would be there, but during one of the preseason games, most likely. And then we will draw, and you will win 2 Eagles tickets to the game of your choice. You do have to during the regular season, yes. And you have to be subscribed to, obviously, again, both Thomas and my channels, which you probably already are. But as long as you're subscribed, you will win 2 tickets. And the cool thing, or the thing that I'm really excited about, is you can pick whatever game you want. And you may, if you would prefer, get to join us on a game. So we're going to pinpoint 1 or 2 games we're going to go to. So if that is one of the games you want to cut or you want to go to, then you know what? Hey, we'll buy tickets for ourselves. We'll buy 2 for you. You and a friend can show up. Now you do have to get yourself there. So wherever it is, like travel, hotel, all that, like we're not going to cover that, obviously, but we will cover the tickets and we will see you at the game. So if you want to do that, you can, or if you prefer to go to a different game, let's say you're in, like Tyler's in Florida, you know, and if he's wanting to go to a game closer to him, then, you know, and we're not going to it, you can, and he wins again, you know, then he can pick whatever. So wherever you're at, whatever game you want to go to, you just let us know. We buy those before regular season starts, because we're not waiting till later in the season to say, oh, hey, I want to go to this game. So you have to pick before the season starts, but then we will buy those tickets and we will give them to you. So super excited about that. Obviously the next several weeks, lots of weeks to come to win this, or to rack up entries for the prize. But yeah, like I said, we've enjoyed this so much. So wanted to figure out a better way to top the jersey giveaway. We figured this is it.
I think this is great. We'll get Donatello Dragon as we did for all the other stuff. He's the first to enter with 2 entries, and it's going to be, you know, a couple of weeks until this actually happens. He mentioned the preseason games, which we're going to get going with, hopefully, you know, 11 weeks from now, 12 weeks from now. But if you want to get entered, this is the way to do it. And I think Josh said it really well. If you don't live in Philadelphia and there is a road game that you're close to, and obviously you're going to find out tomorrow because that's when the actual schedule comes out, but you know the road opponents, you can Google them right now. We would get you tickets if you won to that road game. So if you wanted to, you know, you're close to Washington or you're close to Dallas, a lot of people live in Dallas, you want to go to the Eagle Cowboy game, that will work as well. So obviously there are plenty of options there to win the tickets. So we'll get you guys entered in. Every dollar is an entry, and we'll obviously answering your questions as well. Lori says, can your mom win tickets? I'll just buy my mom tickets. How about that? I took my mom to the divisional round this past year, so I'll probably have to up that and take her to the Super Bowl if we go. But yes,
it's only up from here.
Andrea, who won a jersey, she loves the ticket idea. There you go. Let's go. $19.99. That's 20 entries into our jersey gift. Sorry, let me get this right. Our tickets giveaway. So a fun way to say thank you guys, because the super chats are an awesome thanks to us, and it's a fun way for us to go ahead and share with you guys, because the jersey giveaway was such a success. So every single time that we see that, we'll be throwing up the graphic and get you guys entered, and Josh will have a big giant Excel spreadsheet by the time this starts.
Got it going
for right around preseason. Which would you want most to want the bye week to be? Excuse me. I'm a middle of the season bye kind of guy. You know, I am like very much week 9, week 10, week 11. I hate the week 6 bye. I think the week 6 bye is the worst thing the NFL ever had. I know they have to do it because there are 32 teams and everyone can have a week 9 bye. But like Chris Scott just said, week 9 bye would be perfect. I totally agree. Later on, because that way you have that just 2-week stretch where everyone gets healthy, everybody gets healed. There's no issue, no worries. That's how I would do it overall.
I'm with you. I agree. Honestly, for me, it's the later the better. Like, I'm okay with middle of the season, but if we get the last week possible for a bye week, I think it's always better, because, you know, I mean, obviously you're approaching the playoffs, and it helps at all times to get a little bit of extra break as you're going there, because, you know, hopefully you have things somewhat wrapped up. You know, I think we're going to have a tough competition, obviously, with the division. But, you know, if you're starting to wrap some things up for playoff races, you're kind of already preparing to shut it down a little bit. You get a bye week as extra rest, kind of one last push going to the playoffs. So, yeah, I'm with you. That the early season, yes, it's technically a bye, but kind of like what you're alluding to, it doesn't even feel like it, because it's so early in the season.
Yeah.
Unless you just get absolutely decimated by injuries. But at that point, I mean, the writing's kind of on the wall of like, okay, our season's going to be brutal at this point. But yeah, the later with the bye week, that's what I'm in favor of for sure.
I totally agree. Donto Dragon throwing 5 in here to the jersey, or sorry, I'm going to say that a lot. I'm used to saying jersey giveaway. Tickets giveaway. Vacation was good for y'all. Very generous of y'all. I'll donate even if there isn't a prize. I love the show, and y'all fly goes fly. We appreciate that. Donatello got you 5 more entries.
Appreciate that.
The ticket giveaway. I do want to go ahead and throw up I know you saw this. This is the strength of schedule for Philadelphia. This is something that a lot of people will instantly comment and say, doesn't matter, we'll beat anybody, we'll play anybody. But it is worth noting. We're talking about the schedule dropping tomorrow night. The Eagles have the hardest schedule in the National Football League. I mean, now this is based on
Well,
2022 records, and so everything changes. It doesn't guarantee that in the end it will be the hardest. But we got to remember, last year this was the easiest schedule, and Philadelphia very easily took advantage of that and was, undefeated for a very long time. They won 14 games. This tells me, looking at this strength of schedule combination, Philly is not going to get to 14 wins again. I think my number is 12 this year. I think we'll see what the schedule looks like. I think my number is 12, and that's not saying the Eagles are worse than they were this past year. I think they're better overall, but they do have some pretty tough opponents going into 2023.
Yep. I think in the total, I think Vegas total is 10.5.
Oh,
So
wow.
you're right there on the spot. I would obviously bet the over, but it is kind of a little bit surprising that you're 10.5. I would have thought maybe Vegas goes with an 11 to give a push, or even 11.5. 10.5 seems low, but I tweeted about it, and this is probably where you were referencing, because yes, I saw the strength of schedule, but I don't really like the whole, mantra of, or the idea of, hey, let's look at everyone's last season win projections or win percentage, because you take a look at the Eagles and go, hey, the Eagles are a 9-8 team. So, okay, if you put them on someone's schedule, well, guess what? We won 14 games. So the following season. So I don't know. To me, I always go based off the Vegas win total projection, because they seem to have some sort of very specific idea of what teams are going to do. Obviously, sometimes it's wrong, but for more often than not, they're right. So according to Warren Sharp, if you believe in that sort of thing with the Vegas win totals, he seems to suggest that the Eagles have a middle of the pack schedule, 16th overall, 16th toughest. So I don't. Either way, it wouldn't really concern me if you're saying sure that's the toughest or the middle of the pack. Whatever. I think it doesn't matter. We've talked about it a number of times on the shows, and the NFC is not the toughest or the toughest conference. It's the easier, and this team is loaded. It's stacked, and let's not get carried away too. I know there's lots of expectations, and we don't want to start saying this thing's just for sure and a lock. But I think the mentality of guys like Jalen Hurts and with Nick Sirianni and the passion and Jason Kelsey and Hungry Dogs Run Faster, they're not going to look ahead. They're not going to be like, oh, hey, we've got this wrapped up. It's like every single day you win, and that's how you end up getting to the finish line. So I'm not concerned about it. It's just, always you get these talking points of, hey, do they have a tough schedule? Do they not?
Yeah.
Do we really know? I mean, how many times do we see a playoff team that is in one year that the last year was definitely not even competing for a playoff spot? So we'll see.
It's a good point, and I'm not disagreeing with it. I just look at some of these teams that Philadelphia will have to play, and they are better than a lot of teams they played last year. Think about playing Tennessee last year. Think about playing the Minnesota Vikings very, very early. To me, those are really cupcake games. Where are the cupcake games on this schedule? Now, you can make the argument the Commanders and the Giants, but they're still divisional games, and they're going to play you very, very tough. And now you got to play Aaron Rodgers. You got to play San Francisco. You got to play Josh Allen. You got to play the Dolphins. I mean, Seattle is going to be very, very interesting this season. Kansas City on the road. There are definitely some harder games this year, which is why I like to kind of come down a little bit in terms of the win-loss total, but not by saying that they're going to struggle this year. But I think there'll be a lot closer games and a lot less massive blowouts. Think about the Steeler game last year. I mean, that game was over before it started. They just rolled,
Immediately.
So, it is what it is. We got some ticket entries coming in here. Romeo Talon, tickets to watch the Birds beat the Cowboys. I'm in. That's right. They could be yours. Technically, you got 20 entries in here. You see Josh dutifully getting on his Google Doc Sheets folder, which if you're familiar with Google Drive, meaning that it auto-saves. So we'll have you locked down no matter what. He's got you good to go. Technically, if you wanted to go to the one in Philly, you wanted to go to the one in Dallas, which Josh and I might go to that one. We don't know. We're going to see the schedule tomorrow, and then Josh and I are going to pick the games that we're both going to go to, and we'll let you guys know on that one as well. Plenty of live streams in between, so you'll have your pick pretty soon. Chris Scott gets 5 entries in the ticket giveaway. I originally wanted an easy opening game. Now I want Buffalo to start the season, just because when we beat them, we won't hear we haven't beaten anybody. Worth noting, you'd want Buffalo earlier in the season if you're going. Well, no, it's in Philly. Excuse me. I was going to say if you're at Orchard Park, you want it earlier. Buffalo on Sunday night to open the season, would be very fun. Very fun.
That would be.
That'd be very, very cool. But that also feels like a Monday night or a Sunday night or middle of the season. So I don't know. We'll see. Let me look at the schedule here quickly as we got Chris Scott's 5 entries into the ticket giveaway here. I mean, which non-conference game are you most excited about as I try and get this up on the screen here? There are some good ones. To me, the Aaron Rodgers part of the Jets is fun, but it's not something that I'm like dying to go see. It's not the best game on the schedule. To me, the best game was Buffalo. I think Miami is going to be fascinating. I think it's going to be really interesting to see if they're good with Tua and they, much like us, added more pieces this year. That could be a very good litmus test for Philly. And it feels like it'd be a primetime game because they'd hype the Tua versus Hurts, the replacement and the starter, if you will,
Oh,
there
yes.
for ESPN
Yes.
or NBC. I think that's my guess.
I didn't even think about that really
Yes.
with the storylines, but yeah, I think you're right. You could definitely get one of those. The easy one, and like everybody talks about, is with Kansas City, right? So it's like if
Yeah.
it's official with week 2, I mean, it's the Super Bowl rematch. You can get a ton of people on that. I'm not opposed to just going back to the comment from Chris on the Buffalo and who we're going to play
Yeah.
there or even have that potential. I'm all for like, hey, week 1, start out with a bang, prove to people, we're on the right track. But I just don't know that the NFL is going to do that, because if you're thinking about it, like season openers, they don't really have to like get views, right? Because like we've waited for so long for
Right.
football, they can put
Right.
any teams together and be like, hey, you're going to watch it, because they know that you will, and we will. But it's like if you wait and kind of get these teams developed, and I think that's why it makes sense too. If we go back to the 49ers case, is week 13 probably makes sense because they want the 49ers to have Brock Purdy. And if he's not going to be ready until later in the season
That's a good
with
point.
his elbow injury, and,
That's a good
hey, we
point.
don't want any excuses. Like we want to be both teams, hopefully at full strength. So that makes sense there. But yeah, Miami, I'm totally with you on board with that. I think Buffalo, you possibly could. But I agree. I think with Tua, you got Tyreek Hill, you got Waddle. Like, I'd be curious to see too the defensive side of the ball with Desai. Like, what can he scheme up against?
Yeah.
Because like, let's look back at the schedule again. It's like, we know there's tough teams on it. And also the thing that I look at is there's a lot of tough quarterbacks. To me, that's that's more telling of what this team will be like, because we'll know very quickly after 2 or 3 weeks of playing some solid quarterbacks of, is this the same old defense that we've had?
Yeah.
Or is this a different defense with a different coordinator who knows how to game plan for those top quarterbacks? Because like we've mentioned multiple times, we both said it on our shows before, any quarterback with a pulse who's just average is going to roll out there and had great numbers against Gannon and his defense. So that's always been the knock. And I'm looking forward to see it, because you have a number of quarterbacks. If you're looking at that schedule, that the defense can kind of set the tone and prove to everyone, you know what, this is a different team.
We can look at some of them here. I mean, we're thinking Kyle Trask, Baker Mayfield, Kirk Cousins. Obviously, you get into some of the better ones here with Patrick Mahomes, and then Geno Smith, and then Tua, and then Josh Allen, and then whoever the quarterbacks or the 49ers quarterback is at that point in the season, because week 13, they're probably missing 3 or 4. Kyler, Dak, A-Rod. Jesus, is like harder than I thought it would be. The Giants quarterback and Daniel Jones, Patriots and Mac Jones. Then you get to what's going to be a healthy Rams team. We forget they don't have a lot of talent right now, but it'd be a healthy Matthew Stafford, and then the divisional opponents as well. You're right about that. One thing about Kansas City week 2, everyone's like, oh yeah, we get the week 2 matchup. I don't want Kansas City week 2. Kansas City plays Thursday week 1. That means you're giving the mini bye to Andy Reid, who is historically better, coming off of extra time for prep. I don't want Kansas City week 2. Are you kidding me? No, because they got to play the Thursday game.
That's
and they'll
a good
be coming
point.
off of maybe like a loss to, I don't know who would be their opener if they give them Denver, because they already said that the New Year's Eve game is the Burrow matchup.
Yep.
So it can't be Bengals and Chiefs week 1. That'll be interesting to me, especially if Eagles are week 2. I don't want it. I'd rather play them
That's
week
a good
7.
point. Yeah.
I want Andy on 1 week to prepare and not 2.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, because it really, I mean, so far, I hate to say this, but it hasn't mattered, right? Like whether it's a time, Andy Reid gets extra time against Philly or not, he's 4-0. So I want to see us beat him for once, but I agree with you. Do not give him more time, because against any teams coming off the bye, he's like, well, okay, the offense is going to roll because he's got a game plan that's fantastic for it. So I wasn't thinking about that so much. If we could play a different week, maybe that'd be a little bit better. I still, regardless, whatever it is, it's like I think we're going to show up, and I really do think that we're going to win. I know that's maybe I have to say that because I'm a Philly fan, but like legitimately, I'm thinking this team is super motivated, super hungry. They're coming from the Super Bowl loss, and we had the game in the bag, and we know that, right? We were up by 10 points at halftime. So I don't know. They go back to the hungry dogs run faster, but you see the team that literally just took the Lombardi trophy from you. I think this is finally the year that Andy Reid gets a loss from Philly.
That'd be nice. I mean, it's overdue at this point. Got a couple people asking about the Jalen Carter situation. I know it's on our thumbnail, so I'll refresh and reset the deck for people who weren't here quickly. This happened about an hour ago now. Jalen Carter from Pro Football Talk faces lawsuit in death of former teammate Devin Willock. And essentially what's happening is Dave Willock, I think I'm saying his last name correctly. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing that. He's seeking $40 million in a case filed Tuesday against the school's athletic association. Carter and others. The suit alleges wrongful death, negligent hiring, and negligence. Essentially, what's happening here, he's seeking $30 million from the defendants in compensatory damages and an additional $10 million in punitive damages from Carter. It alleges Carter had a pattern of excessive speeding that the car dealership should have taken under consideration for multiple speeding tickets. He previously was fined $1,000 after being cited for nearly going 90 in a 45. So the father of the Georgia player who passed away in the car accident, which again, Jalen Carter was not behind the wheel for that, but he was driving his Jeep that was given to him in an NIL deal from what seems to be some sort of nightclub. That's where this is all kind of stemming from. And Josh and I both talked about this earlier. Anytime you mention loss of life and an off the field issue, on the field stuff seems a lot less important. But if you put that aside for a second, you just focus on the on the field situation, it won't affect him in terms of playing. He's not going to get suspended. He's not going to be fined by the NFL. This will be handled by lawyers off the football field to the point that he might not even deal with it. Let his lawyers do so. Just probably cost him some money out of his pocketbook. But what I do worry about, we said this at the opener, 45 minutes ago, is this going to loom? And I think you said this, Josh. Does this hover around him a little bit as he's trying to make the transition from a college player, a college young man, to a grown adult who works for a living, who gets paid to play football for real, with all the expectation to be the 9th overall draft pick? He's got to make sure he's right mentally in order to get on the football field, block everything out, and be the best type of player that he can be, which Philadelphia traded up to get in the number 9 overall draft pick. So we will see very, very soon what's going to happen. But like Vic just said, everybody sues everybody, and that seems to be the case at this point in this situation.
Yeah, not too surprising. Yeah, exactly. You see lawsuits for every type of scenario, but like we said earlier, again, it comes down to, is this something, I think from Jalen's side, like you just mentioned and spoke to very clearly and very well, is he's probably got the legal team that's going to handle it. The Eagles are going to deal with that all off the field, but it's the psyche, it's the mental part of the game. And is Jalen Carter going to be able to kind of focus and say, you know what, I've got to get focused on my game here. I've got to continue to progress and get better and improve and be ready to play NFL football. And that's, a big undertaking, regardless of he's got insane talent. And everybody knows that the potential is through the roof and he's incredible. But like we talked to you about earlier, I mean, you've got a little bit of some, track record of, I don't know, a little bit of risky, like, is he going to be able to, because the pro day he didn't show up for great. And there's some other, issues of like, okay, is he going to be able to keep focused? Is he going to be distracted? Is this going to loom over him and make a bigger deal out of something? So I don't know. And we won't really know until we get to the regular season. Because like you mentioned, he may not play much in the preseason. So it might just be, hey, week 1, here we go. Let's see how it's going to turn out.
Well, and let's just not sugarcoat things. Jalen Carter has to grow up. He has to be a big boy. He has to be an adult now. I mean, the college kids make college mistakes. We all were in college at some point, and you and I were, quote unquote, good kids and still did things in college that we probably, look back on with a little bit of embarrassment. Nothing to this level, but he's got to grow up. You are now getting paid to be an adult. You're in the working force of America now, where you have a job that you must show up to. You must perform at a high level, and it's a little different because you're in the NFL. We're going to pay you tens of millions of dollars to go out there and win for us, and that's a simple truth. No more, being a young college kid. I know that just a couple months doesn't change his age, and just college kids a couple months ago, and now he's a working man adult. But still, he does need to grow up. He needs to make smart decisions off the football field. He needs to be smart about what he puts on social media, what he says to people, who he hangs out with. All these things are true for every single NFL player. But when you're underneath a little bit of a microscope, like Jalen Carter will be for at least the first year in the NFL, if not a little bit longer, just make big boy smart decisions and you will have no issues. And if you go out there and ball out while making big boy smart decisions, everybody in Philadelphia will love you for a very, very, very long time. So we can sugarcoat things and we can talk about, the mental side of this, the mental side of that, and what happens off the football field. But in the end, just grow up, prove to us you're an adult, Prove to us that we're all right about you. We think you're really good, and go out there and win football games. And everybody in the NFL will be very happy. I think it's that
Yeah.
simple.
And thankfully, he does have the right group around him. I think Mr.
Yes.
Rivera there on the
Yes.
comments says right team with great teammates that could help him out. Yes, he's got accountability partners. You've seen in the interviews Nolan Smith right beside him. He's got obviously with Jordan Davis, who was a very big mentor. And Jalen Carter's mentioned multiple times how he helped him whenever he was at Georgia. So he's got the guys that he feels comfortable with, that he looks up to, that can really kind of circle around him and say, hey, this is what you need to do. Because again, it's easy to forget sometimes when we see the massive contracts and they're in the NFL and everything else. But like you mentioned, I mean, he's 22. Like, it didn't change because in a month, he went from being a college kid to being an NFL player. But it does in terms of the scrutiny, and he's opened himself up to more of it, obviously, with the issues here and now the lawsuit. But I think there's not a better setup, and that is obviously why Howie Roseman and the Eagles took him, because they believe in him. They believe in the Georgia program. And you got to believe, too, they're getting other info too from Kirby Smart. I mean, Kirby Smart's name hasn't come up a whole lot. It's been, hey, the Georgia Dogs and the players and everything else. But Howie Roseman was at the Georgia practice last season. So he's got insight from Kirby Smart as well of, hey, I need to know about this player here. So I'm not concerned about it. I do think that this is the right group. And you also mentioned just the other leaders. We don't have to say that they're Georgia players, but you've got Jalen Hurts, you got Jason Kelsey, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox. Like, he's got some really great guys to look up to. So I do think it will be okay. But yes, to your point, he has to grow up. And that's just a fact of every player, not just Jalen Carter, every player, every rookie who's been drafted. Unfortunately, he's going to get scrutinized, like you said, for at least the first year, a lot more than other rookies will.
A lot of people mentioning these things in the comment section in terms of, do we really think that Howie Roseman would have spent the 9th overall pick on someone he didn't think would stay out of trouble? I mean, that's part of this. Yes, we do think that they did their due diligence. And I've been saying this, all the time, that NFL teams employ CIA level operatives to these schools to meet with people. I mean, it's not that serious, but it is. I mean, they are meeting with Jalen Carter's friends and his family and the people that he hangs out with, and maybe, someone he dated. I mean, they're going everywhere for every single draft pick, and I'm sure they did their due diligence. It's fine.
They learn everything about you that you even forgot about yourself. It's kind of like, oh gosh, I didn't even remember that. So yeah, they're totally on top of it.
Cool Rain says Josh could sue Thomas for nothing. That's true. You could sue anybody. That is a very good point.
Don't give me any ideas.
You never know. Cool Rain says everyone in Philly is so mature. Jalen should be fine. I totally agree. Let's switch topics here to one that we didn't talk about pre-show. Let's talk about the punt god for a second here, because I've debated doing a show on Matt. I think Ariza, however you say his last name. You didn't see this. He obviously had the allegations of, let's just say, gang rape during his time in college, which was horrific. He was drafted by the Buffalo Bills, hit historically that 82-yard punt in preseason, and then he was immediately cut when these allegations came out, as it normally happens. And there are some people from the beginning of this who said Buffalo should have waited. NFL teams don't wait when you see gang rape involved with one of your players. They move on, and they'll figure it out later. That's how it works. But now it's come out, and there have been reports saying that he was not present at the time of the assault, and you can read more about that online. And I've seen a lot of people comment on my show, and I'm guessing yours as well, saying we should sign the punt god. And so let's at least address that right now. I don't think Philadelphia will do it. I think that the issue is the name still has a negative connotation around it, as unfair as it is. And trust me, it's very unfair. I mean, if you lie about this sort of thing from the other side and you ruin someone's life, that's ridiculous, and that alone should be punishable. But that's not the point right now. I think they got to make sure that the name gets fully cleared before going ahead and making a move for somebody who's not critical to your team winning a Super Bowl. Sure, we like someone better than Siposs, but I think the kid from Kansas State that they got, you saw that punt during minicamp, looks pretty good. I just think, to answer the question that we keep getting asked, I don't think they're going to go out and sign the punt god anytime soon.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, and appreciate Matthew Ariza, I guess is the Ariza. Yeah,
there you go.
But they've got Ty Zentner, and that's kind of all that you need to have, really, because you've got the competition with Siposs, and if you think about it, to your point there, you've already got this Jalen Carter thing. And I know we mentioned it with the lawsuit, but it would be adding extra insult to injury, so to speak. And you've already got some publicity here that's kind of like, look, we probably expected this. It's not really unexpected, I don't think, from the Eagles organization or Howie. But if you add that in with Ariza, then all of a sudden you're going, okay, we're opening up a whole new can of worms that the media is going to give us absolute hell for several days or weeks or months, leading up to the season. Is it really worth it? Probably not at this point, because they just got Zentner. Let's give him a shot. If all of a sudden you're going months down the line, like you just talked about, that everything's cleared up, then sure, you might see it. But I agree with you. I don't think that it's something, a risk that they're worth taking, or that they're going to consider.
I think we both, wish him the best, and the situation is horrible to be falsely accused of something in which you were never even present during the said incident happened. It's ridiculous, but I think Philadelphia, from a strictly football standpoint, which we talk about all the time here, will be staying away from that situation at the present moment, which is my best guess overall. Speaking of rookie minicamp, we both are obviously following a lot of the people that were at rookie minicamp, and the beat writers, the people talking about what they saw. Philly's got some interesting players this year, and two of which that I glossed over during the draft and got ripped for it in the comments were Sidney Brown, the safety, and then is it Jomo? So you say his last name, the 7th round draft pick.
Yeah, Jomo. Yep.
Both of those players apparently had a very good rookie minicamp. Were very, very impressive, and you could throw Tyler Steen in there. I mean, listen, I'll admit when I'm wrong. I saw Tyler Steen get drafted, and I said, listen, Cam Jurgens is still going to win that job. After what we've heard so far from rookie minicamp, which, again, they're not going to talk bad about these guys after 2 days of non-padded practices. But Steen apparently is looking pretty good. Sidney Brown looks pretty good. Jobo looks pretty good. I'm like, okay, how wrong can I be? I hope I'm wrong on all three of these guys, but so far they sound like they're pretty good.
They've looked really good. Yeah, I know there was a lot of hype from Ajomo, like whenever he was just drafted, that people were like, whoa, that's a big steal. And I know PFF had him as a top 100 player on their board. So to get him at the 7th round pick, yeah, obviously a huge steal there. But his interview, did you hear Ajomo's interview? I mean, the story on him is unbelievable. So he started kindergarten at 3 years old. He enrolled in college at 16.
What?
He played 5 years of college football. So he's 21, but he's a redshirt senior, but he played 5 years. He's unbelievably smart. But his interview, I mean, he's a guy talking about, like, I'm super competitive. He's like, I've only got one life to live. I'm going to aim for the moon and shoot for the stars. He's like, I'm going to give it my all. I've got so much to learn, but he's like, I'm going out every single day. I'm never going to be stagnant. I'm like, this guy's 21 years old. So you talk about maturity, like he has everything. And so I was like, I liked him, but I didn't know all the extra details until the interview and the drafting and everything else. And then, like you mentioned, all the reports coming out of minicamp is he had a great camp. I could definitely see him getting a spot and even playing a good rotational piece on the D-line. So I'm really happy about it. The knock on him seems to be that he's not quite developed in terms of the pass rushing. But again, he's 21 years old. So you're not really asking him to come in there and say, hey, you need to be a specialist here. We've got other players for that. So I love it. It's great. It sounds like Sidney Brown too is getting hyped to potentially be the starter. It sounds like most people, if you've heard the same thing, that it's like, hey, I wouldn't put it out of the reasonable doubt that he would be the starter on week 1. It seems a little crazy, but I think it's obviously a good pick. But yeah, a lot of great storylines, and then Steen, like you talked about too. I was throwing it out there just to pat myself on the back here a little bit. I was throwing it out there like maybe the Eagles are not completely sold on Cam Jurgens.
You were right.
That was just total speculation, and I could still be wrong because Jurgens could be the starter. But all the pictures, all the videos, the clips, and everything from Steen working with Stoutland, it looks a little bit more than just, hey, I'm working with a backup here. They might think about trying to put him as the starter week 1,
which is pretty exciting as we look at the depth chart. There are some serious position battles happening with a team that was, a plays away from winning a Super Bowl this past year, where you expected people to leave. They don't replace them. And so you next man up mentality. Obviously, we talked about the offseason and Howie Roseman had. Think about this. You have a wide open, really 4-horse race at running back. Now, it's really a 3 because Scott is never going to be given the number 1 spot behind, of course, Swift, Penny, and Gainwell. But really, Swift, Penny, and Gainwell have a serious competition at training camp. Cannot wait for that. You have a wide receiver 3 competition that is 4 or 5 players deep. I think they're going to bring in and keep some of the guys they had at tryouts this past week. Some of the undrafted free agent guys as well. Zacchaeus versus Zacchaeus versus Quez Watkins is kind of the hot number 3 topic right now, but there's a battle there. You have a battle at guard. You have battles at backup tight end. You obviously have battles at rotational defensive line. You have Kentavious Street and, Jomo and Milton Williams. I mean, there are serious battles here. Linebacker is wide open. And then safety is the most wide open battle in this entire depth chart, because you would think it'd be Edmonds. You would think it'd be Edmonds and Blankenship, but ESPN already has Sidney Brown starting at the free spot over Reed Blankenship. Like, this is going to be a wild training camp where you're going to get the cream really rising to the top here and some serious position battles to watch out for. I really can't wait.
I can't either. It's exciting. It's a little bit of a slight, or maybe a lot in this point
Probably a
of
little bit.
Reed
Yeah.
Blankenship. I mean, like I saw that too, and I was like, are you serious? Like this
Yeah.
is the guy who played very well in CJ Gardner-Johnson's absence, and all of a sudden we're just. And don't get me wrong, I'm excited about Sidney Brown, but draft him and immediately, oh, sorry, Reed, you're the backup now. I don't know, but yes, as we've said, and I've seen a lot of quotes and tweets and all this, but iron sharpens iron. The competition is a good thing here. This team is only going to be better for it. But I can't wait to see how these positional battles turn out, because you've got months of this to go. And, will we see some of these rookies being starters? Will we see some of the guys who've already been here kind of rise to the occasion? Are there moves that are still going to be done? That's also the question I'm asking, is like, do you think that Howie's got one other big move, up his sleeve? Is he going to sign somebody? Is he going to trade for someone? Yeah, I don't know. There's still so much time. We know he could do it at any point, even right up until the season starts. But already with the group that you're looking at and what they're trying to build, I'm ecstatic. I can't wait.
Let's talk about maybe a signing here. Andrew puts a really good comment. He says Dean and TBD at inside linebacker makes me nervous too. I hope the Eagles scoop up one of these guys who didn't get fifth-year options like Queen or Simmons or maybe Devin White. We talked about all of them in terms of, Queen and White and Simmons as potential trade options. Linebacker is that spot to me where if you get into training camp and it's week 3, or you've had one preseason game, and Howie's looking at the guys and he goes, I don't have it here in Morrow and Dean, because we assume that Dean is going to be a starter. That's not guaranteed. We all want that to happen, not guaranteed. I think Morrow is going to be the starter, but that's not guaranteed either. If he looks at these linebackers, once we get to training camp, there could be a situation where he says, we're not good here. This is a liability. Let's change things up. I think everywhere else, they're going to feel really good about. I think they have enough safeties to do so. I think that if, Sidney Brown isn't ready, Reed Blankenship is hovering and obviously fine. I think he played very, very well. Kayvon Wallace is talking like he's going to have a really big year. Who knows if it's
no missed tackles.
No missed tackles.
No
He
missed
didn't have a lot of
tackles.
tackles to miss, but he still says it. Yeah, listen, we love you, Kayvon, but there's not a lot of tackles to miss out there. How's your cover skills? But the linebacker to me would be the one that would happen. But like you said, it would be a CJ Gardner-Johnson type signing where it would be very close to the start of the season, because Howie would look at the guys for weeks on end up close in training camp and say, well, we don't have it here and we need to have it here.
Yeah. But it's a great position to be in, because there's a lot of depth. There's a lot of battles going on. And you're right. I mean, we can't solidify for sure, but without going to an absolute lock, I mean, I think you probably would say this, that Nakobe Dean is just about an absolute lock, because you drafted him for a reason. He's probably going to be a starter. Again, you're not going to say 100%, but I mean, he's a Georgia guy. He's got all of his guys there. He's got a chip on his shoulder. There's so many reasons for Howie to move with it. But like you say, I mean, if you go through a preseason game, you go through camp, go through preseason, you're like, this is not looking so great. Yeah, then I think that the move is going to be coming, because he's going to make something of either combination of next year's draft picks if you're going to trade, or there's obviously options out there already to sign players, and so you could just do that. But it's a great position to be in, because you're not going like, oh man, like we don't have players that can kind of compete for these positions. Do we have some depth in other spots? I mean, the two biggest components, like what Howie and the Eagles always build, is O-line, D-line. And you look at all the competition across the board here, like it's a fantastic spot to be in. So the other areas where, again, Howie doesn't view it as highly, certainly with linebacker, it's like, okay, that's fine. And if you don't have your exact combination there, it's still plenty of time to figure that out. And so I think it's a fantastic position to be in.
A couple of other questions here. Ohanami's family says, which wide receivers do you guys think we will keep on the team? I think we'll keep 6. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Zacchaeus, Watkins, Covey, and Jaden Hasselwood. I think it's 6 as well, and that's a pretty solid group. I mean, I have no issues with that 6. I think for sure, obviously the first 3. Watkins is going to make the roster. I talked about it today. They could try and trade him, but he's going to make the roster. Covey, because he's your really true only real punt returner at the moment. And then I think Hasselwood, I mean, he's going to have to really ball out in preseason, and it's tough when you have backups throwing you the football, Ian Book and the quarterback that they got from Stanford, Tanner McKee.
Yep.
But I think that's the 6. I really do.
I could see that. Yeah, certainly as of right now. Again, another name could be thrown in the mix, but as of today, that would be, I think, a rock solid group there. And I'm excited. I know you just alluded to it a second ago, but again, we go back to the whole Olamide Zacchaeus, Quez Watkins, who's wide receiver 3. The battle there, Quez is obviously ticked off about. He's got a chip on his shoulder, but that's great. Like, this is going to allow the cream to rise to the top. And so I can't wait for it. But yeah, that group right there, the receiver unit, And there's been reports too, you probably saw them, of where the Eagles rank in terms of how much they pay their receiver group. And I think they're like 20th in the NFL. So it's a great spot to be in. And it was funny because as you look at the teams who've been successful, most of the teams have less money that they pay to the receiver group. So is there a correlation to that? Maybe, maybe not. You can look at tons of analytics, but it's still a great position to be in because you've got two absolute beasts in AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. And then you just throw in the third receiver where two guys could very easily be wide receiver 3. And unfortunately, one of them is not going to get it, but it's a great position to be in.
Isaac Torres says, Thomas, after signing all the rookies, how much cap will we have? Be enough for one more elite player? Do you think I will save it for midseason? We can sign depth. Sue as an example. It's about $13 million after signing the rookies is what I saw. They had 17, cost you 4 to sign the rookies. There, you're sitting at 13, which is enough. That's enough for Buddha. That's enough for, Devin White with some weird restructuring, I guess. It's plenty for Patrick Queen or Isaiah Simmons. It's enough for a move if they wanted to make a move. Let's say that.
Yep, plenty to make a move for one big player, one acquisition. He can either extend, like you talked about. Howie's a whiz with a cap, obviously, so he can figure it out. But definitely enough room for one big move there.
Jose says, let's trade for Bijan Robertson. I don't know who that is. That sounds like one of the Duck Dynasty's brothers there. Man, we an hour without mentioning Bijan. It feels good. It almost feels good.
Yeah, that's the first show by far.
Almost
I think we made it like 10 minutes on one show before the draft. This is you're obviously, that's kind of a joke because you're not trading for him at this point. You're too rock solid. You already got Swift and everything else. But I'm excited too. I mean, if we want to talk about the comment on Swift, it's like, because I think they're saying, what's your take on Swift? I'm excited, and it's also very similar. It's funny on this because it's very similar to me for Rashad Penny, right? Because we've got a guy in Rashad Penny who can be phenomenal whenever he's on the football field, but he's got the injury issues. And then you got DeAndre Swift, who, according to Pro Football Focus, and I think there was one other, I can't remember who it was, but the grades based on just performance actually graded higher than Miles Sanders. Yes. Unfortunately, he just can't stay healthy. And so you've got two players who have a ton of potential, but it's just a question, can they stay healthy? But you know what? If there's ever a season they're going to do it, it's going to be behind an offensive line like this one. And so I'm telling you, this team, this dynamic, if they are healthy and they don't miss games, or let's say that each of them misses like 1 or 2 games, but that's it, the numbers rushing that we're going to put up is going to be absurd because they've put up great numbers behind not great or just average offensive lines. And it's just been the health concerns. But if they make it a full season, I can't wait to see what the numbers will be because it'll be through the roof.
What I love is the physicality of both of them. Philly has not had a big physical back since Blunt and Ajayi, and it feels like they've kind of recreated that. Now, neither of them are as big as Blunt. Blunt was kind of his own type of gravy. I mean, he was much more big and much more physical than any other running back of his era. But it feels like the physical power back is there. Now, they're both quick. They're both elusive. They have good legs. They can move laterally. I mean, they catch the ball in the backfield. All of that is true, but they're thick. They're physical. They're going to run you over. They're going to absorb contact. And Sanders, he wasn't great at that. And I love Miles Sanders. I would have re-signed him, although the money was too much. We all get that. I do think the Swift trade is the reassurance on Penny. I think they had to have somebody else just in case he got injured. And I think that the injury history for both him and Swift is, a little bit too high. And now they bring in both of them. That way you kind of have your chances of still having one out there, right? And like you said, if Rashard misses 6 games, Swift misses 4, Gamewell misses 2, like you're still going to have a combo of these running backs in there. And if you keep Trey Sermon on the practice squad, you can call him up if necessary. I think overall what they did at the running back spot is exactly what teams should do in the modern NFL. Gone are the days where you need to give a running back $15 million a year for 5 straight years and pray he doesn't blow out his knee, which is almost a guarantee for running backs now. You get a couple of them who have flashed, and then you throw them on a roster behind a great offensive line, and whoever's the last man standing gets the most reps. That's how it's going to go. It stinks to be a running back. There was a comment earlier saying, why would you want to be a running back if you're a kid these days? I don't know, but people still do it. You got to make, got to go to college somehow. You got to make the NFL somehow. You still make a couple $1 million, you're fine. But I think it was a masterclass. I think the running back group is very exciting, but it will be best man, last man standing because I think they are concerned about the injuries.
Totally. Yeah. And if you look at it again, I've just seen several of these tweets, but it's like the Eagles running back room compared to just the Miles Sanders deal on an annual basis is just slightly over now with the Swift trade. So what a masterclass, like what you're talking about there. You've got 4 running backs who can shift and rotate and be in different positions and have the success with that. So yeah, that's definitely the way to build it. But it's interesting too, because I want to ask you that on this. There was a report from Jeremy Fowler of ESPN. The Eagles are potentially going to extend DeAndre Swift. Now, nothing's come from that since, but it's still like obviously Howie loved him. And I think that you don't ever move on a player unless you at least consider the potential of extending them, because otherwise it seems like a very, very short-sighted trade. But do you think this is going to happen? I mean, I talked about it a little bit on my show, or is this yeah, we'll see? I mean, there's the risk reward of when you sign, if it's, before the payoff, after the payoff, but just curious of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, you wonder if the contract talk right now is to try to make him happy, because it seemed like, I mean, playing time was one thing for Swift in Detroit, but he wanted a new contract. Everybody wants a new contract when you get close to the end of your deal. You get to year 3 of that second in round and later draft pick, or year 1 or year 4 of the first round draft pick. You start to kind of want the money, and maybe it's just trying to throw him a bone. I could see them extending him, but the risk is too great. I mean, one more serious injury for Penny, or especially Penny, but Swift as well. And I mean, they're not going to be the same players. So I would wait to do it. But it is weird that Jeremy Fowler, who's one of the better ESPN insiders, I mean, there are a lot of ESPN insiders that do a good job, but sometimes miss. Fowler, to me, is very plugged in and quietly under the radar as one of their best guys behind Schefter. So if he's reporting it, obviously it's probably true. It just seems a little early for me, but I don't know. What are you going to do?
Yeah. I was taken aback too. I thought the same. I was like, okay,
Weird.
Fowler saying it, so there's some truth and validity to it. But I mean, maybe you extend like not a long term, but like just one extra season to kind of give yourself a little flexibility, and you're hoping that he performs well, and you don't have to give him a bigger contract because of that. But yeah, you're kind of playing with fire a little bit there, because he does have the injury history like you alluded to. And so, where's the risk reward on that? Obviously if you get him to sign now and he does great, he doesn't get injured, then you've saved yourself some money, because he's going to want a bigger contract and you already got him done. But I don't know. To me, I thought it was a little bit shocking. I think I would be surprised if we got an extension over the next couple weeks or even month or so. But again, that's why Howie's paid the big bucks, and he can see into the future. And so if he does it, I'll trust that, he sees the potential there, and they've got a plan for him. So we'll just leave it at that. But yeah, it was a little bit surprising to me for sure.
It does feel like either way, he won't be an Eagle next year. If he plays poorly, they won't re-sign him. If he plays well, he'll go sign somewhere else for more money. It'll be the Miles Sanders effect all over again. Sanders got a bunch of $6 million a year on a 3-year contract is a lot for a running back. That's cashing in. I mean, that's some serious money. Penny's getting what, $1 million? It's not a lot. And then you cut that in half with taxes. You pay 10% to your agent, and then you give your mama a house. I mean, it goes away very quickly. So
it's not that much.
To me, you're getting Swift on a 1-year deal. You run him as much as you possibly can and try to run him to a Super Bowl, and then wish him luck where he goes after that, because someone will pay him $6+ million.
That's what I would think too. Yeah. But again, it's like, it's okay. Is there validity to the report? Because, and let's not forget, like if they don't extend him and then he gets signed by someone else, it's going to be probably like a 4th round compensatory pick. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you really have to love this guy if you want to extend him, because otherwise, like you just mentioned, run him into the ground. Sorry, unfortunately, DeAndre Swift, but that's how a lot of running backs are viewed. So get your money's worth there, have some other team sign him, and then get your compensatory pick. It's kind of like you got him for free, because you're getting a 4th round pick back. It's either 4th or 5th round. I can't remember what it is, but the compensatory almost makes it for nothing. So I don't know. It would be surprising if they went ahead and did it, but we'll see. Maybe he's interested in him.
Welcome in people who are just joining us. Read some comments here. Sermon is practice squad. Sadly, Scott and Gainwell get 3 and 4. Yeah, I don't know how Sermon makes this roster. And unless Scott gets beat out, but you would have to really convince a lot of Eagle fans that Scott did not deserve to be on this roster. I mean, he's gonna make it. Ivan Lopez says, I get young Deshaun Jackson vibes from DeAndre Swift to be a fan favorite and electric. I think so too. I think we're gonna see one of these running backs, whether it's Penny, Gainwell, or Swift, have a couple of big preseason runs that really fire us up, that we're going to be like, oh yeah, here we go. This is what you want. I just feel that that's going to happen.
The moment that Rashad Penny just absolutely obliterates somebody, I'm going to be like, yes, it's going to be fantastic.
Yes. Alfonso says, I want a Super Bowl rematch with KC. The AFC is going to be fascinating. I mean, we'll go for a little longer here. We've already been going for an hour, but we can talk about the AFC briefly here, and we'll talk about the NFC as well. The AFC is a dogfight, man. You got to get out of the AFC playoffs, and that's what's going to be wild. That's why it was impressive for KC last year, because they went through, the Cincinnati Bengals, which was a tough matchup for them. They almost lost it. They had a really tough matchup against Trevor Lawrence and what's going to be an even better Jaguar team this year. The AFC is going to be fascinating. I find it hard to believe KC makes it back yet again. I know that they're great. I know they still have Mahomes winning Super Bowls. It feels like a Brady dynasty setting up all over again. I think another team is going to make a run here and be really scary. The other scary thing for the AFC is one of the great quarterbacks won't even make the playoffs because there are only 7 playoff spots and there are 8 good quarterbacks in the AFC.
Sorry, mine was lagging there for a second. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, no, I agree with you though. It's going to be interesting because to your point, and we've had so many quarterbacks that they've gone to the AFC now, and they're actually one of them's going to have to not make it. And what would be funny too is like, what if Aaron Rodgers, he goes through all this stuff in the offseason, all this drama. He's supposed to at least make the playoffs, and then he didn't, right? Like if that was the one team, I would get a laugh out of it, just because this thing playing out the way it did, and all the hype, and then he's traded, he's not traded. Wait, he's going to stay in Green Bay, maybe, or is he retiring? What's going on? And then the Jets obviously pull it off. They make all this equity to get him, and then he didn't make the play. That would just be it kind of be comical, honestly.
We have the odds here from Vegas: Chiefs 1, Eagles 2, Niners 3. Which, okay, pause on the Niners. I'll come back to them. Bills, Bengals, Jets, Cowboys, Ravens, Lions, Jags, Dolphins, Chargers. It seems like kind of the line for actual Super Bowl odds is here with plus 1,800 for the Baltimore Ravens. I don't want to sit here and be the typical Eagle fan that wants to, dump all over the Niners. They have a good roster. I mean, they do. It's not that great of a roster if you actually look at it. They have a great offensive line. It's not elite. They have some players at some spots on O-line that are really good, some that aren't. They have a really good defensive line. Okay. They're pretty good at linebacker. I'd say better than most teams. Corners are, good, not great. They have one really good receiver. Yes, I know they have another one. They have a good tight end. Like it's a solid roster. But this is not a roster that you can put paper to paper next to Philadelphia's. I don't think it's possible. And when you tie in the fact that Kyle Shanahan, 1, can't keep quarterbacks healthy, and 2, has brought in so many other quarterbacks because he can't keep quarterbacks healthy that he's scared to not have the right quarterback in there, there's just no way to meet San Francisco's as the 3rd best Super Bowl odds. Unless Brock Purdy gets healthy quick, which apparently he's not going to, and comes in and plays like he did the regular season, they have a serious problem at quarterback, and I think could be a 500 team when it's all said and done. And a 500 team that might look at Kyle Shanahan and go, we got to go someplace else because you've never been able to deliver it to us. And I don't want to be hot takey on the 49ers, but he hasn't. He got him to 1 Super Bowl with Jimmy G, and they basically spent the rest of Jimmy G's career trying to get rid of him for other quarterbacks that aren't as good. And the Purdy sample size is too small. It's way too small. It's a serious injury to his throwing arm that doesn't guarantee he's back by week 1. To me, the fact they put San Francisco as the 3rd best team in terms of odds to win the Super Bowl, I would put my money on Buffalo, on Cincinnati, on the Jets. I could make an argument Dallas has a better roster because as much as we think Dak is average, he's at least consistent and basically healthy the entire year. And if you don't have a healthy, good Purdy, is Trey Lance balling out this year, finally? Is Sam Darnold balling out this year? Finally,
definitely not.
I don't know. I just, I know it's the hot thing to do with Eagle logos around me because the Niners cry about everything. I just don't think their roster is as good as people think, and they don't have a quarterback right now until they prove to us they, 1, have one, and 2, can keep him healthy.
Yeah, I agree. I think, unfortunately, that Kyle Shanahan tries to, I think he outthinks himself sometimes. He's trying to put this creative game plan, this other scheming, catch defenses off guard, and it works a decent amount of times. Sure. And we give him credit. I know he hasn't been able to get to, or since the Super Bowl, the one time that they made it, but get over the hump and kind of win the Super Bowl, get back. But yeah, you talk about the quarterbacks that get injured. That's the common denominator. Like there's always a quarterback that's going to be injured. So I think you're asking like, hey, by week 13, if that's actually when we play the 49ers, like what quarterback are we going to be on? How many quarterbacks will they have lost at that point? There's a reason why they're signing all these quarterbacks is he's kind of preparing or knowing, yeah, we'll probably be without a quarterback. But I just wonder if like, you think he's in denial, or he knows, like, my scheming, my play call, there's something about it? Or is he just kind of like,
I
we're
think
just
he's in
super
denial.
unlucky. We're super unlucky. We're one of those teams that for some reason I
Yeah.
don't know why, but for some reason we can't keep our quarterbacks healthy.
I think he thinks that it's unlucky. I think he thinks he has the best scheme in the world. If he had the right quarterback, he would be able to dominate with it. Worth noting, they have a tough schedule just like us. They have a very tough division, as we know. They got to play the NFC East, which is tough, but then they got to play Baltimore. They got to play Cincinnati. They got to play Pittsburgh. Obviously, they got to play the Vikings, the Jaguars. I mean, the cakewalk games on this schedule are the Cardinals twice, the Bucks, and then I guess you could say the Browns if Watson continues to stink. Like it's not an easy schedule. I mean, these are some good defenses. So
They are.
I
And they
respect
got to
them.
travel a ton
They
too.
got to
Did you see
travel a ton.
the
Yes,
mileage on the
yes.
there?
Well, I mean, look at all these East Coast teams. I mean, you got to go to Philly.
Yep.
You have to go to Cleveland. You have to go to Washington. You got to go to Pittsburgh. You got to go to Jacksonville. Minnesota's pretty East Coast. I mean, I know it's a little bit more this way, but still,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
I think they're good. I think they're dangerous. They could beat us. Sure. Can they win the division? Sure. But this is not a 12-win football team. This is a 10-win football team that's going to be battling their way to stay healthy and then prove to the rest of the world they have a quarterback that can scare you consistently longer than Brock Purdy did.
And we don't know if if that'll happen, honestly. I mean, we'll see, but they spent a lot of equity on Trey Lance. Could he be the guy? And like you mentioned, is he going to be? I don't know. There's reports that he's still working with his mechanics, his throwing mechanics, and trying to get things down there. So who knows? Who knows what's going to pan out there? But yeah, I'm with you. I don't know if the Super Bowl odds, if that's just telling that, okay, the NFC, as we've mentioned, it's not as deep. And so you don't have to be as, I guess, armed to be able to go through the gauntlet that, there's not as much. Or if it's just like, maybe Vegas is the expectation. There's just a lot of parity that's going to happen this season between all the teams. It'll be interesting to see, but it never helps with the schedule. So as far as the traveling schedule, and I know we kind of opened with it or talked about it early on, but I'm thankful, and like you are, that we're not playing over in Europe. That just does something to the body clock, to the injuries, to getting right, staying healthy. It just changes. So the fact that Eagles don't have to do that is great. They appear to be about middle of the pack in terms of just miles traveled anyway. But yeah, you want to stay healthy, all that travel that I think all the NFC West teams, and I don't know, right, wrong, or different, they're going to the East Coast. It seems like in a lot of games. So they are traveling the most. And the NFC North, oddly enough, I guess maybe because they're in the center of the country, you're kind of centrally located, but they have the least. So, but again, thankfully for Philly, they're not having to deal with too much of the travel.
Let's quickly just recap, because the thumbnail talks about Jalen Carter. Alex Shirk says, what happened to Jalen Carter? Just got here. The father of the teammate who died in the car crash, the infamous car crash, is suing both Carter, I believe the school of UGA, and then a couple of businesses that were involved in giving Jalen Carter his 2021 Jeep Cherokee Trailhawk in that NIL deal. So essentially, the lawsuit will be $30 million from the defendants in compensatory damages, additional $10 million in punitive damages from Carter. Basically saying there was a pattern of excess speeding. He should not have been giving a car, and they were essentially the reason why his son died. So it's a $40 million lawsuit. It's not anything that's going to affect on the football field in terms of a suspension. This will be off the field. Money will exchange hands. There'll be lawyers. There'll be all sorts of not fun stuff on that part. But overall, this is a air that's looming around, an aura around Jalen Carter that's just not a good thing that Philadelphia wants associated, because it will make some headlines. But I think from your question, or your being the Eagle fans' question of what happens to Carter's playing ability, I think everything's fine on that end. So yes, Alex says he can still play. Yes, he can still play. Nothing crazy. So yeah, I think it's going to be fine.
Yep, should still be on the field. But if anything, I think the biggest change or the biggest difference that'll come from this, and we kind of alluded to or mentioned a little bit, but possibly just the restructuring of how NIL deals work to begin with. Because, maybe it was, hey, in the big money grab, we're able to now sponsor and, give other items to college athletes, that it's a quick, just go ahead and move forward. Maybe there's a settlement. Maybe this thing actually goes all the way through with the lawsuit. Maybe gets hung up in court for forever and nothing happens. That's where I kind of seem to think it's going to be years and years worth. But still, even if you just see that, you go, let's make sure we're never in that again. So perhaps there's a little bit more of due diligence on the side of getting NIL deals done. But in terms, again, like you just mentioned, as far as Jalen Carter, he will be on the field. He's going to play. I don't think the Eagles organization is caught off guard by this. And, we'll just see how much it affects Jalen Carter's mental ability to get out there and perform, even if it's kind of looming over him.
It is worth noting in terms of Eagle OTA dates, like when would Carter be on the football field? Obviously, the OTAs has started on April 24th. They're back in the NovaCare complex May 30th. They're there June 1 through June 2, June 5 and June 6, and then June 8th. So there will be multiple times to get him back in the building. And then there'll be a nice gap from about June 8th until end of July, and then they're all back there for training camp. So they'll have more times to get him in there. One thing to note before we do end, and this is interesting, I just saw this on Twitter. Sean Desai will speak to reporters for the very first time as the Eagle defensive coordinator tomorrow. I think it's 12:45 Eastern. I don't know the time exactly. You and I, I'm sure, will both cover it, but we have not heard from Desai since he's been hired at all, which is wild because it happened a long, long time ago. You will get the first questions to Desai, questions about what kind of defense does he want to run, questions about Carter. I'm sure this is bad timing for him tomorrow. He'll get a little, press conference coaching, a little welcome to Philadelphia because you're going to have some tough questions there. But Desai will finally get in front of the media. And I think that's a very, very fascinating press conference just to hear his side of things because I'll be honest, I haven't heard the guy talk other than a couple of mic'd up practices that I watched when he was in Chicago and Seattle. So yeah. I'm very excited to see what he says in an Eagles polo with the NovaCare stuff behind him.
Exactly. Yeah, I've been surprised too because we've said it, I think, many times, and people are like, hey, why have we not heard from Desai? It just seems a little bit odd. We'd have some sort of announcement, conversation, a little bit, even if it's not a full blown intro or interview, we'd have something. But finally, we're getting it, and I'm curious because I'm going to be definitely tuned in because I want to hear what he has to say. Obviously, tons of acquisitions. He's got great teams, or he's got great players on this team, and now it's like, okay, what's the scheme going to be like? What's the fit? I'm curious to, just hear his thoughts on coming to Philly. Obviously, he's kind of a Vic Fangio disciple. So, did he talk to Vic in any way of just learning more about Philly? It'd be interesting, though. I can't wait to hear from him.
Travis says he did a press conference in Seattle. Yeah, well, yes, but I didn't go back and listen to his Seattle press conferences. I mean, I wasn't trying to be that crazy, but it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. Listen, the offseason is the offseason. There's not going to be any sort of, I think Johnson is speaking tomorrow, Tyler. Tyler's asking if Brian Johnson. I think Johnson's also speaking, but don't quote me on that. It was Desai and one of the coordinators. I don't remember who it is. But the offseason is always going to be crazy. I mean, there are always going to be storylines, always going to be news. And so we're going to be live every single Wednesday that we can. Most likely every single Wednesday. I mean, it'll be one or two. Josh went on vacation. If I go on vacation, stuff like that will happen. Josh got like 10 days in Hawaii. Goodness gracious. I mean, my goodness. I kept seeing pictures on Instagram from him and his wife having the time of their lives. So I got to get me on a vacation here soon. But
you got to go on some vacation.
We are going to be live, obviously, on every single Wednesday for the Wednesday Linc. And then Josh and my shows. Josh had 26,000 views on a show a couple of days ago, which was nuts. 10,000 the other day. If you're not subscribed to him yet, you're missing out. He's now including clips from The Office in his shows. I mean, it's getting wild over here. Yeah. Pushing me to be a better editor. We're pushing each other to get more subscribers. I mean, we're trying to give you guys the best content possible. We know you guys appreciate it, but if you have not subscribed, subscribe to both channels. And then, of course, as mentioned, as we get ready to wrap things up here, this is officially begun. I mean, the ticket giveaway, every single super chat on every single live show between now and right around the middle of the preseason, we're going to be picking somebody to win 2 tickets to an Eagles game of their choice this year. So a couple people enter tonight. You have plenty more time. I mean, it's a lot of weeks until the start of the season, but we're excited to give away tickets. And hopefully whoever wins them will enjoy going to an Eagle game. So
take your pick. Any game you want. A regular season game, but any game you want.
Going to be exciting. A bunch of fun. And we, of course, sent Tyler Wallace, Andrea, and Vanny their jerseys. Well, we pre-ordered them, guys. I mean, it's going to take probably 4 weeks to get them in your pocket just because it's pre-order, but they are on the way. So exciting stuff there. But that's all the time we have for today on this edition of the Wednesday Linc Live. Josh Davis, be sure to subscribe him for the special show. And then, of course, sub to the Thomas Mott Show as well. We'll see you guys in the next one. Schedule breakdown videos tomorrow. Be sure to be on the lookout for those. Always fun when they get leaked early, too. We'll have that for you guys as well. See ya.